we're going to give it a few minutes for everybody to join, but I saw your post about the swampland that you toured.
Yeah. That was fun.
So, well, the funny thing is, if you're a person that can see down the road, and I'm not one of those people, I really do struggle with it. But I learned that in Mobile, so I do a lot of business in Mobile, and one of the main hospitals there was built on top of a swamp.
Right.
And if you look at where it's built and everything that's around it now, you would never know that existed, right? So I don't know and this was probably 30 years ago, maybe 20 or 30 years ago. So if you ever have visions of, building a hospital one day, that maybe that piece of property is for you. I don't know.
Right. Well, it was right off of the World Golf Village exit. So it's enormous. I mean, I can't even get over when I was driving through the area. I just drove around it for a little while.
Yeah.
How much construction and how much activity, and this is a commercial project. So, I obviously need wealth in the area. So I was so impressed. Everybody's got something for sale down there, and so it was really a nice piece of property, but it did come with quite a bit of preserve/swamp land.
Yeah. Well, if there's that one thing, if you can actually do something with it, that's one thing. But if there's a lot of hoops you got to jump through, I don't know.
Yeah, it was going to get too risky with some of the different wetlands issues. I was like, this could lock me up for a long time.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, let's get started. I want to make sure I've got record. We've got a lot of people joining this morning. We've got a lot of new members, right? And which is exciting to see. And I'm hoping we're going to continue to grow this again as we get. And I want to make sure I've shared my vision with y'all with this. So as we get more and more people involved, I want to limit these calls to about 10 or 15 people. And so if we expand past that, there's just going to be another call. And my first thought process is we're going to break it up to East and West. I know, Terry, you're a little bit more earlier than the rest of us. And I think Tiffany's even earlier than that, she's not on today. But so hopefully we can make some adjustments as we grow that to accommodate for everybody. So, Jared, good morning. Good to see you, man. So I'm going to mute everybody. I've got a couple of house cleaning items that I want to go through, and then we'll get right into it because I've actually have a hard stop today. We got something with the family we got to do. So we got about an hour and 15. So I want to make sure we got plenty of time to talk. So a couple house cleaning items. I need to reschedule the call on the 30th to January the 6th. So Terry, if that's okay with you, I'd like to keep you on the hot seat for that. I did look at your tracker this morning. You're doing an outstanding job. If anybody's having trouble with coming up with their goals or their objectives or tactics, take a look at what Terry's doing. She's great job, very detailed, very specific, which is what you want to do out of that. So if that's okay with you, Terry, I'll leave you there on that hot seat and we'll just do it for January 6th. Okay, cool. The other thing is I'm lining up a few guests to join us. Let me back up. I want to welcome the new member. So Melody, Jared, you're not new, but this is your first call. And Patrick, let's see, who else am I missing? There was one more Ryan. He's not on yet. He might be working. I don't know. So thank you guys. Welcome. Hopefully you're going to get a lot out of this. But I appreciate y'all being here. Anyway, back to the house cleaning item. So I've got a few guests that are lined up. One of them is a tax strategist, CPA. We're going to shoot for the end of January. The other one is a doctor. If you know who Doc Green is, he's on social media. That's not his real name. He actually stays anonymous because he still is a practicing physician, but he has been able to go half-time or part-time doing physician work because of his real estate investing success. And then there's also the nurse, I forget her name every time. Anne, I think it is. Anyway, so I'm lining up some of those guests, and you're going to see those invites and calendar items come out I'll post those in the Facebook group. I'll create the little calendar events that Facebook allows you to do. The only thing is since most of these folks are working individuals, their schedules may not line up with ours, right? So that was the point of me posting that poll. So we may do a Saturday event. A matter of fact, Natalie, who's the tax strategist, she agreed to do a Saturday event. And what these events are going to be, they're going to be 20 to 30-minute sessions of just Q&A, right? You guys fire questions at them. And what I'll do ahead of time is I'll ask for your questions about a week in advance to go ahead and feed that over to our guest, so we can be real quick with our time and get as much value out of that as we can. So just look for those invites coming up pretty soon. And the idea is if you can join, then you can ask your question. You know, we'll just kind of do round robin. I'll choose whoever, just go down the list. And if you're not there, then I'll take the opportunity to ask your question, and then you can catch it on the replay. So let's see. That's it for now. So Andre had some questions, and he's not on here. So I want to make sure we answer his questions. And I was hoping he's going to join because the first one could use some clarity on it. But his first question was, what is the minimum you will accept from a party on a joint venture? And this was in single family home, multifamily home, and commercial. And for the new ones, for the new members and everybody here, what we do on this, so if at the very bottom of your screen, there's our participants button. And once you tap on that, the little sidebar is going to open up. If you hit the raise hand feature, I'll be alerted so that I can actually call on you. So anytime you need to say something, just do that. Tim, good morning, sir. How are you? New headset, huh? Hey, so Andre's first question is, what is the minimum you will accept from a third party or from a party on a joint venture in single family, multifamily, and commercial? My answer to that is it depends, right? You got to figure out what works for everybody. And Andre, if you want to add some clarity, if you're able to jump on this or add some clarity to it in the Facebook group, that's fine too. But it really depends. I think what you're probably looking at is what a great place to start is going to be, what will you accept? And then go find partners who will accept what's left, right? Or vice versa. A lot of that happens through just many conversations, which I know Tim has a lot of those conversations. He knows how to do this. My introvert self just does not allow me to do it a whole lot. So the other question Andre had, unless anybody's got any other feedback on that one, we'll skip to the next one.
Jay.
Yes, go ahead.
I guess the only thing is, I mean, the minimum could be zero. It's really, what else is he bringing to the partnership? He could be the guy that brings all the capital and does nothing else. And then, you know, or he could be the guy that brings no capital but does all the, you know, the negotiations, structuring the deal, you know, finding the other investors to fill the gaps, whatever it is. And I wish he was here because it was his question, obviously, that he asked, and I wish he was here to really go more into depth. Maybe we're not even in the right direction, maybe answering his question. But yeah, that's the coolest thing about real estate, man. You could structure deals any way you possibly want. You could be as creative as you need to. There's no limitation to what the minimum investment. I just want to make sure he understands there is no minimum. It depends on your relationships, man. Everything is about relationships.
You're right. There is no silver bullet. And you said something there that jarred a thought in my very foggy brain this morning. I'm trying to get a cold, or I'm getting over one. I'm not really sure. But one of the things that I think you figured out, and I figured out too through this process, is once you have that first deal done, once you've closed on your first, let's just say in this apartment complex or commercial property, then people start looking at you differently. And when I say people, banks, right? So these lending institutions, one of the things that, you know, that I've run into since we did our first apartment complex together, when we're looking at other opportunities, the banking individual, the banker, the underwriter, they've asked one question very consistently is, what is your experience in this? And the moment I go into, well, you know, I've got this 42 unit apartment complex, I've got these 9 other units, blah, blah, blah. It's almost like, okay, I'm not worried about that anymore. Let's get down to the actual financial piece. You know, they want to know somebody that has had some experience. So I think you bring up a good point. It could be zero, meaning that you're just going to get the experience out of it, right? Okay. Second question was, what are some of the strategies the group has used to stop the feeling of being stagnant? I've been through this. I think through the holidays, it kind of gets that way too for almost everybody. Anybody got some advice for Andre on how to not feel stagnant? Tim?
It is, you know, I think it's, what are your goals all about? How much do your goals mean to you? And what is your why? And are you committed to that? I think if you are actually genuinely committed to attaining what you're talking about, what we're all here to do, then it won't be that difficult to navigate through all the noise and BS to hit those goals. And stagnation usually comes from making excuses. What excuses are you giving yourself why you can't keep moving forward? Is it, you know, I don't have enough time, you know, I have a family to take care of, or my job takes too many hours of my day? Like, what are those excuses that are causing that stagnation? And I think once you realize that the excuses, that's all they are, they're just excuses, those are what are stopping you from moving forward. And I know it's very general, more of a blanket statement, and I wish I had more detail on that. You know, I hope that helps, but see what else the group can come up with.
Quaith, what you got? Hang on, let me unmute you. By the way, did I say your name right that time? Please tell me yes. I still can't hear you, buddy. Nope. Okay. We got to get your mic working because you are on the hot seat this morning. So while you're figuring that out, I'll add to that. So one of the strategies that I use is the 12-week tracker, right? Because and we're all going through that. A lot of you some of you have put more detail into that than others. But the one thing that I run into is not necessarily feeling stagnant, is sometimes feeling overloaded, you know, and we're entering the holiday season. Thanksgiving, I got way off track just personally. You know, I missed 3 or 4 days of my daily task. And then I feel this pressure and anxiety of, man, I really got to get this stuff done, right? Which is self-inflicting. But the other thing is it is a constant reminder, right? I have this list of things that I want to do. I'm not going to, you know, if I don't have that list, I do get stagnant, right? Because then to me, it's one of those things where, and it works different for everybody, but if I don't have it written down, chances are it's not going to get done, right? And there is some psychological aspect of crossing something off the list. Simon Sinek, if you're familiar with him, he goes into the actual neurotoxins that are released when you actually cross something off a list. And he makes a joke about, I think it was a joke about he's in the grocery store with his wife or something, and they're getting something. They're getting all their groceries, and she goes to grab something that's not on the list, and he really quickly writes it down on the list just so he could scratch it off. And I've done that before, and then when I heard the story, I just cracked up laughing because there is a sense of I forget, there is actually a neurotoxin that is released in your brain when you accomplish something, you mark it out. So just interesting thing to say. Mr. Smith, did you get your microphone working? Nope. Keep playing with it. If you have to log back in, that's fine too. Try it now. Say something. Oh, he left. Okay. Might be on my end. Jared, what you got, man?
Hey, everybody. So I'm like you, Jay, in that I don't ever feel like I'm stagnating. I feel like I'm overwhelmed, but I'm always keeping busy. If I'm driving somewhere, I have an audiobook playing that's giving me ideas. If I'm sitting at my desk and I'm at a stopping point, I'm looking for properties on Zillow or LoopNet or whatever, and just checking my bank account, seeing what money moves I got to move around to achieve my goals. So you always got to be doing something. I don't know how you can stagnate unless you're at a point where you're just not making enough money, and then you got to figure that out too. Find some way to hustle to increase your W2 paycheck.
And I do think, Andre and I've had some sidebar conversations. I think he's struggling with, and I wish he was here to help answer this, but I think he's struggling with what his goals actually should be. And I think that's leading to him being stagnant, right? And if you look at his tracker, there's a lot of items that are missing. It's not very detailed, but I agree with you. There's always something you can do. Patrick, what you got, bud?
Hey, yeah, just based off of what Andres had said, I always kind of try to put it down towards the, think about 2 weeks in advance. Am I going to be happy with decision A or decision B? When I look back, what am I going to rather do? You may feel stagnant of, I don't know what decision to make, but make one and then correct on the go. As long as you're not putting yourself in a hole that you can't come back from, it's better than to move forward and correct and be aware that, hey, this was the wrong move in the first place and I'll do better next time.
Yeah, there's a quote by somebody who's a lot smarter than me that's talking about the implementing a non-perfect plan is 100% better than waiting for a perfect plan to be created. Something along those. I'm sure I butchered it. I'll try to look it up and post it, but you're exactly right. Just move, right? And then course correct when necessary.
Jay, that solely reminds me of the book, The One Thing. Has anybody not read that book? The One Thing? It's an amazing book by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan.
Yep.
Obviously it's highly recommended on Bigger Pockets, but it's all about goal setting. What is the one thing you could do right now that'll get you closer to your goals or make everything easier or unnecessary? And if you have 10 things that are on your mind, well, just pick one of them and just go for it. And it'll just compound, and then you'll, again, be able to get that serotonin or dopamine release once you cross that thing off the list, and then you could kind of keep moving forward. So that has always stuck in my head. What is the one thing I could do to just get closer to my goals that will make everything easier or unnecessary? It's an amazing book if you haven't read it, The One Thing.
And if you haven't read it, or if you have read it, you're going to get an opportunity to read it again, because in January, that's going to be our book of the month, right? So I don't think I told you that, Tim, but anyway, it's just kind of funny. So it is a great book. It is a principle that I adopted earlier this year. I think it was this year, it might have been last year. Completely changed my day. As far as there's some concepts in the book that talk about exactly what Tim just said. Find out what the one thing you can do right now that's going to make the rest of the 10 things on your list either obsolete or that less important to do. Totally has changed the way I look at things and how I approach my day. So it's a great recommendation and some insight on what we're going to do in January. Anybody else? All right, so let's get into the after action review. So for you new folks, you may have missed this, but one of the things that we were challenged to do is to send thank you notes, handwritten thank you notes to everyone we've done business with or somebody that we hope to do business with next year. I think most everybody did this. There's some great feedback in the Facebook group. Terry, you had probably one of the best responses so far that I've seen. And I'd love for you to share that, a little bit more detail of that if you can.
Yeah, I mean, I had planned to mail Christmas cards to clients anyway. But what I did was, after the challenge, I went ahead and expanded that to the contractors, the vendors that I've been working with this year. I've done a really big, for me, project this year. And so I thanked them. I said, I've enjoyed working with you, even though we're not quite done. And then I also did clients, and one of the clients, when he received it, was realized that he had repositioned himself to acquire another multifamily property. I've sold him several, and I've sold his mother-in-law one and stuff. And he said, I got your card, and it made me think I need to tell you that I'm ready to look again. And it was like, oh, cool.
That's awesome.
Because it has been, this last quarter's been kind of dead. You know, people, I had a good first 3 quarters, and the last quarter has been like crickets, nothing out there at all.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And for those of y'all who don't know, Terry's also a broker, right? So Terry, is that typical for your business? Is that a typical cycle for your business?
Yeah, it's not unusual. It seemed like it started earlier this year, but the talk around the office was that it was also an election year. And a lot of times Colorado had some big things on the docket for the election that could have impacted our economy. And so a lot of the consensus was, because of the election, it slowed down sooner because people wanted to see what the results of that were going to be. So yeah, but it is very typical of around the holidays. People just are busy with other things, and they're just going to push it back. And I'm not the only realtor in my office that's experiencing that. So.
Yeah, I imagine so. I would say personally, my efforts and my priorities get shifted too, whether I like it or not. Right.
Right.
So, anybody else want to talk about the thank you notes they sent out? No. So I'll give one example. So I didn't have that many to send out, or I didn't send that many out. One of them was to a guy who I look up and follow from not just a real estate investing standpoint, but I sent one to him. Didn't even expect him to respond to it. And he sent me an email saying, hey man, I got your note. Glad I'm able to help you out, blah, blah, blah. And it was one of those like, okay, maybe he knows who I am, because it was a cool experience. But, it's something about a handwritten note that just goes so much longer, further than an email or a text, or, those come all day, every day. Just the handwritten notes just add so much more personal aspect to it. Right. So, all right. So let's move on to Gwaith. Hot seat, man. Did you get your mic working? Right now it says you're muted. Try it now. No. We just get to beat you up and you have to be mute. How about that? There's also the chat feature. So you might just have to chat it in. While you're working on that, I'm going to bring up your tracker here, so we can all. And he left. He was so scared he left. I'm just kidding. I know he's probably trying to work on it. Can everybody see my screen? And I'm going to need somebody to verbally say yes, no.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can see it.
Okay, great. Great. We're going to go ahead and dive in. I'm going to unmute you just in case. It's not allowing me to do that. For those new members, this is not a normal dance that we typically do. So, but we'll dive into this, and then we'll catch up with you maybe in the chat, or is he on here? I'm having trouble viewing. Let's see. Oh, he's going to, looks like he's trying to call in. Okay. I need to cue up the Jeopardy music, right? While we're waiting. Terry, can I put you on the spot again? So I understand you have a property in Afghanistan. Is that right? No. How did I misunderstand that? You at one point in time you did. What was the? Hang on, I want to get to the bottom.
Okay.
Okay.
No, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. What I told Jared Dean, and I'm actually going to do that in the next, probably this coming week, since I'm on the hot seat. I was going to tell him a story about a phone call I got from Afghanistan once that's real estate related. And so I'm going to do that via the Facebook. I'm going to post something for you guys to read. But no. Although my son, one of my boys, tried to convince me once to go into real estate in Iraq, in Baghdad, because he was over there 3 frickin' times, and saw opportunity, but we didn't go. We didn't get there.
Yeah, that's incredible, by the way.
The market is terrible in Afghanistan, by the way.
I'm sure.
Wait, have you tried to dial in just doing the audio? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do some more time fillers. So since we're moving the 30th call to January 6th, there's real no additional challenges for this month, except for keep reading the 12-week year. If y'all new, for the new members, if you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. It's a huge, it's a baseline for how we're using this 12-week tracker. There's a lot of insight in there. This kind of provide you some information. Terry, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, I was going to ask permission, since I'm on the hot seat on the 6th. May I give the challenge that day for the following week or 2 weeks, or however you're going to structure it?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, because I've got one in mind, and it was going to work for the 30th, but it'll work for the 6th too. So.
Okay. Yeah. Which is a great reminder for me. So one of the things that I want y'all to be thinking about is challenges that you can offer up to the rest of the group. right? So thank you, Terry. I had forgotten to write that down. Can you hear me now? Hey, all right. Yes. Success.
All right. So I'm on my phone now. So apologies if this is all out of whack.
No worries.
All right. So I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay. I like it. All right. Let me share my screen again. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So once again, can you see my screen? Is this you?
I can see the screen.
Okay. You know what this is, right? I know if you're on your mobile, it's really difficult to see, right?
Yeah. So, I'm pulling it up on my computer, so I can have my thing in front of me.
All right. So, and if you guys just remember to hit the raise hand feature, that way I'll be alerted to call on you if you got some feedback for Gwaith, and I'll answer it, or I'll call on you. Okay. So
just real quick, just let me know if you can't see me, because I can't see myself. So I don't know if I'm holding the phone in a good spot.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Okay. So vision number 1, create 80, and it looks like vision number 1 and vision number 2 are very similar. They just have different tactics. Am I right on that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So 1 year tactic, get on the general partnership side of apartment syndication to create both income and grow a track record. This is vision number 1, right? And then, so goal, 90-day goal, find syndicators who need help raising money and provide that. And you're talking about provide money, correct?
Yeah, the raising capital side.
Okay. So primary drill, network via Bigger Pockets, which is a site we all love and adore, right? And at least 1 forum post reply inbox per day. So talk to me a little bit about that. So
So that's actually, go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's all right. I was going to say, kind of higher level stuff right here. Like I've been working on this, this tracker to try to get it to a way that I can see it and utilize it and really try to, as you say, chunk down what the tasks are. But I went back halfway through, and after we kind of clarified the exact setup that this should be, and really tried to narrow down my vision. And I can kind of get into that as well. But with regards to the tactics, I
get into it. Yeah, get into it. Tell us, add some clarity for us.
All right. So in addition to this, I've been doing some sort of like personal growth coaching through like one of the Tony Robbins programs. And, talking about the vision, the coach in that venue, she is, she's big on the vision really being feelings as opposed to, say whether
Objective.
It's income or freedom. Yeah, it's like it's greatness, it's satisfaction, it's contentment. It's not necessarily the vision, which I originally thought my vision was, and I was writing things down, like the time and doing things over Christmas and all this. And she's trying to really get me to say, well, what is that going to make you feel like? What is that going to feel when you achieve that? And really kind of going towards those feelings. So I tried to bring that into here a little bit. And I brought, like, if you look on where it says vision 1, vision 2, vision 3,
yep,
I brought that up to include something, higher level, above the tactic. So yep, $8,500 per month in investment income by January 1, 2022. I can't remember. I think that was Patrick who really kind of, or Ryan, and I think Patrick who had those dates, and I kind of used that as a little bit of a guide. So thank you. And then what that tactic was going to be, general partnership side of a 50+ unit apartment building or community. And I still want to change this a little bit because there's different ways to get to that level that I want. That's not the only one. It's just one. So I do want to change, say, vision 2 and really figure out vision 3. But that's kind of an ongoing thing for me. And that's kind of what I was going to say when you guys were talking about Andre before, was really kind of getting that vision, getting it down, knowing it, not having to think about it, know about it, and then try to dumb it down from there to see, okay, how do I start achieving that? So I think I'm getting there, but I really got to get those drills down as well.
Yeah. And I think everybody, if you've never done a 12-week tracker or 90-day tracker like this, where you focus on just the next 90 days, you'll learn that 90 days is a very small window, right? So even if you don't have clarity, the more you work through this and the more we, beat you up, so to speak, you're going to start saying, oh, okay, now I get it. You're going to have these consistent, or the idea is for you to have those consistent aha moments, right? So while you're striving to accomplish these, you should expect, everybody should expect, the moment they're on the hot seat, or it could be day 60, you're thinking, man, I should have been doing this for the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever it is. Make note of that and adjust as necessary, right? The idea here is to be consistent, because 90 days is enough to say, okay, is this tactic going to work for me? You may find out that posting once a day in Bigger Pockets is not enough. I'll go ahead and challenge you. I don't think it is enough, but then again, so let's go back up to your vision one, create $8,500 a month in investment income. That's through a general partnership by January of 2022. So let's just say we're close enough to January 1, 2019. Let's just say that's 3 years away, right?
Yep.
So you could break that down if every year you want to get, a third of that, right?
Yep.
Then break it down even further and say, well, if I want to obtain a third of that, how many deals do I need to look at? How many partners do I need to talk to? Right. I'd also challenge you that, Bigger Pockets is great. It's actually where Tim and I met, and we have done a deal together, but make sure you're incorporating some form of in-person communication. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this gets into your checkpoints, which I want to make sure we're clear on, because these are missing from several of the trackers. So a 30-day checkpoint should just be that, right? So if you look at this piece right here, so post at least one forum post reply inbox per day. So if you do the math and you figure out, okay, I've got to get 10 contacts to, and I don't know what this math is, right? I'm throwing out random numbers at this point. If you think you have to have 10, what was your 10 syndicators to help raise that money, right? You want to nurture and really cure that relationship with them. So the first thing you've got to do is you've got to find those people, right? So maybe your 30-day checkpoint, if you've got to have 10 to produce 8,500 in 3 years, then you also, mark that down to a third, right? So by the end of 90 days, you should have at least one, because there's not like a half of a person. But the idea being that you have, your checkpoint is, okay, I've made, and it could be a range of things, but it's just a different tactic to say, okay, am I tracking what I'm trying to do? Sure, I'm posting, I'm getting these introductions, these virtual introductions, but what's really happening beyond that, right? Am I narrowing down the list to say, these are the people that I need to really follow up with? These are the people that I need to meet in person and create the next steps from them, right? So a 30-day checkpoint for you may be to have 5 in-person meetings for that month, right? Or 10, whatever the number is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So go ahead.
The same with number 2, right? So you want to narrow down a new target market. So you're analyzing.
So can I just kind of go back to one real quick?
Yeah.
Because I feel like probably more is you're right. I should be doing more than that. But I've been surprised as to some of the effectiveness. Like this week, I connected with somebody who's a tight end for the New York Giants.
Nice.
And one of the things that I was able to do is I invest with Joe Fairless as a limited partner.
Okay.
So his story, this tight end story, I just thought was really cool. I'm like, that's probably something that a podcast guy, and if I were a podcast guy, I'd want to interview him, because I think that's a good story. Like people watch the NFL, and
sure,
this guy's a tight end, and he plays in the NFL, but he's also a real estate investor. So when I reached out to him, I told him, I said, hey, I think that's a great story. I know a couple of guys who do podcasts. I'd love to, if you're interested, I'll reach out for you. And, we connected, and I basically reached out to Joe and told him that, I said, hey, this guy's like, he seems legit, seems like a nice guy. I think it'd be a good, maybe podcast guest for you. And, he wrote back, thank you, and gave me the contact info for the guy that schedules his podcasts. And I forwarded that along to this guy. And we had a phone call scheduled for yesterday, but he got hurt in practice and isn't even going to today's game. But, we're trying to schedule to meet in person and get on the phone together. And I had an opportunity through this as well, through Multifamily Investor Nation, where Dan Hanford, I was telling a little bit of my story. And in my most recent 13 unit, he said he might want to interview me on the podcast. So it's tough because the times where he records doesn't really jive with my work schedule. So I have to take the day off for it. But like, those are two things that happened in this past week that really, I said, wow, that kind of came from that drill. So that surprised me. That I think is yielding more fruit than I thought it would.
Well, and that's the thing. If it's doing what you, if it's exceeding your expectations, then you don't need to change anything, right?
Well, yeah, but I think you're right. I think I need to do more.
I got you.
Right. But the whole thing with the tight end was like, right out of the go-giver.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like you're the connector there. That's
yeah.
That's
so,
awesome.
and I even kind of made that comment. I said to Josh, there's no ulterior motive for me here. I just,
yeah,
I think it'd be good. I'd want to listen to that episode.
Yeah, I would too. Kim, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, I just sent you a message real quick on the chat. I just was wondering what his 13 unit was that he just mentioned.
In September, I closed on a 13 unit in Pittsburgh. So I'm not on the chat right now. I'm kind of closed out of everything on my computer, so I can't really see that, just so you guys know. But with one partner that I've done deals with, we closed a 13 unit in Pittsburgh, and we're in the middle of our plan to raise rents and to do some interior renovations and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share more information if that's what you're looking for, but
yeah, I just wondering how that process got started and how you, like, did you start with single family and then move to small multi, or?
No, so my first one was a duplex that I got off the MLS through an agent, and then I did a fourplex through the same agent, and I kind of set a goal that I wanted to do. It was a 15 plus unit was what my goal was. This ended up being 13 unit, but I checked it off as a victory, and it was through a commercial broker, and I was trying to get in with the commercial brokers in Pittsburgh, and it was a tough crowd to get in with. Every time I would call on a property that was listed, an associate broker would call me back, and they were trying to vet me. Long story short, we submitted an LOI on a 15 unit in an area that I really liked, and it fell through right before the agreement of sale phase. There was an exclusion that the seller had in their contract with the broker, and they basically used us to raise the price to that exclusion. And the broker kind of called me back, said he felt bad how everything went down. He wanted us to get that deal because the exclusion had him out of that deal as well. And he came back to me maybe 3 weeks later, said he had said he had a potential off-market deal, like he would approach the sellers and see if they would be interested. And it kind of went from there, and we got it.
Wow, that's cool. So when you got your letter of intent, how did that go in the sense of, aren't you a fireman? Are you the fireman?
No, I'm a prosthetist. I make artificial limbs.
Oh, okay. You look similar to the guy with the hoodie on the other day running through the woods.
That's right. Yeah.
So no, but I was just wondering, okay, so like, how did you submit your letter of intent to these, and how do you say, like, you said they were vetting you? I'm very familiar with that right now. Like, everybody's trying to figure out if I'm legit, or so what did you do to get your letter of intent?
So the broker actually drafted it for us, and we had spoken with the broker. We had told him the price where we wanted to purchase it at, and he basically had the brokerage there. They have it's almost like a template. So he wrote it up. He sent it over to us. We docu-signed it. He submitted it, and the original on that first one, I think the original LOI wasn't accepted, and then the second was. And then it was the same process when we got that off-market deal. You know,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kim, I have an LOI if you if that's what or template, if you're interested in looking at it.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Could you share that on the Facebook page? Because I'd be interested too.
Yeah, you bet.
Cool.
Melody, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, with when you going back to the commercial brokers, when you were trying to find them, like what did you initially say to them over the phone, and did you meet them in person? I know Pittsburgh is pretty far, but did you guys go out and meet them personally?
So no, the short answer is no. When I first started reaching out to them, I was making a phone call to introduce myself, and I was sending an email with a criteria list, basically, you know, saying what I had already, which at that time was a duplex and a fourplex, and what I was looking for, and then I would follow up with a phone call. I really didn't get any response, like none. I was looking on their individual brokerage sites where they list, you know, the properties that they have for sale, and any that were attractive to me, I would call specifically on that property, and I would, you know, I'd ask for the offering memorandum, or I would just ask some information on the property, and that's when I would get the phone call back from somebody other than who I called, so like an associate broker, not the lead broker on the deal. The one that we were really interested in and we submitted the LOI on, the lead broker ultimately called back, and there was a conference call with the associate broker and whatnot. And we moved forward on it. And our goal was just to be as, you know, as amenable as we could and easy to work with as we could. And it was a little bit of a struggle because we want to be easy to work with, but at the same time, we didn't want to get taken advantage of. So, you know, we struggled with that. And when that deal fell apart, you know, like I said, he just called back, said he felt bad, and, you know, kind of asked what my criteria was, and I giggled because I was like, well, I sent that to you a while ago.
Yeah.
But we went over that criteria again, and you know, he was like, oh, do you have any other properties? I was like, yeah, I sent you that information as well. But and then like he started kind of listening to me and you know, looking at the stuff I had sent over, and he got back to me. Like I said, it was probably only 3 weeks later.
Is that third party managed, or you guys self-managed?
No, that's third party managed. So we did Fannie Mae lending on it, so it was a requirement to have you know, third party management. And to be honest, you know, in that whole process, I feel like they vetted the property manager almost as much as they vetted us with the loan.
You guys went out there to walk the units and
my partner on that is local to Pittsburgh, so he did. I didn't. Yeah.
Okay.
And Gwaith, I'll mention, you bring up a point of, you know, obscurity, which we all are going to run into at one point in time as we start trying to work with new brokers. It doesn't matter that you emailed it to them and you called them. You know, I still have a realtor that I work with, and he'll send me stuff that's not even near what our criteria are. But it is one of those things that I know why he's doing it. It's just basically to say, hey, have you know, thought about this kind of asset? But it's one of those things where you essentially, or I found out that I've had to train and keep in contact with those brokers and say, here's what I'm looking for. Here's my criteria. So, yeah, it's fact that they have to do that because they're getting hit by, you know, the market's hot right now, especially in the multifamily space. I'm assuming you're probably one of 100, but congratulations on that deal. By the way, I didn't know that happened, or I forgot about it. So that's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
So, Gwaith, did your partner meet with the broker?
Yes. Yeah.
Eventually, right?
Broker. So yeah, so the sellers were, I mean, it's a long story, but the sellers were, you know, eccentric. They wouldn't accept an LOI until we looked at the building. So even though we wanted to submit, they wouldn't even consider it until we looked at the building. Or I'm sorry, not an LOI. They wouldn't give us the financials until we looked at the building. That's what it was. So yeah, my partner met with the broker, met with their property manager, and they walked the building. That was one of the first things. And then we got the financials to really start underwriting it.
Forgot that I muted myself. Sorry. So let's keep moving along here on your vision number 2. Your 90-day goal is to narrow down a new target market. You want to dive into that one just a little bit?
Yeah. So I've been, you know, I bought in Pittsburgh and I invest in Pittsburgh because of my familiarity with the area, but I never really did a market analysis on it. As I kind of got further along in this journey, I did do a market analysis, and, you know, there's certain metrics that it doesn't really hit. You know, Pittsburgh isn't the highest population growth city in the world. It has an older population that's dying off. And I said to myself, I'm going to, you know, I really want to just consider other markets. So I kind of made it a to-do for myself to do that. And I thought that in identifying another market, that would then open up opportunities to reach out to brokers again, to reach out to partners or potential partners, property managers. But for me, like, the whole thing starts at the market. So
yeah,
I'm, you know, right now I've got my spreadsheet and I'm following, you know, a template of sorts in terms of certain criteria, population growth, unemployment trends, you know, in 5-year time frames, what the diversity of the job market is, who the main employers are, you know, what the supply and demand is in the market, and just trying to find new markets that I could, you know, possibly invest in, and hopefully find people who would want to do the same with me.
So the only feedback I'll give you here is on your primary drill. And I know you said you were still working on this, is maybe one of those revisions. I like the 3 times a week, spend at least 15 minutes analyzing a new potential market. The only thing I have a problem with is until I have 6 to choose from. To me, that is an open-ended, you know, statement, unless it coincides with back to 2022, right? But what is the end goal for you to say, okay, now I figured out, because markets are going to constantly change, when would you like to have those 6 to choose from and really start actively looking at properties? Is that the 90-day goal?
That's a good point. I guess I really have to, you know,
think about it.
Yeah, clarify that. That might be the 90-day goal. But yeah, no, that's a real good point. And this is the section of the spreadsheet where I started struggling. Yeah, no,
that's why we're here, right? So,
yeah.
And if it is so again, I'll touch on the checkpoint. So if the 90-day goal is to have 6 markets to choose from, or to really, you said choose from, but I think if I'm reading in between the lines, your 6 to really start diving in and looking at opportunities, right? So they've passed your analysis, but now you really want to start diving into them. You know,
yeah, and by diving in, that's what I mean. Like, start to look for brokers, start to look for you know, partners and all that.
So, you know, is your checkpoint, you know, if you want to do 6 in a 90-day period, then your 30-day checkpoint is to have 2, your 60 days to have 4, or 90 days. What I think is probably going to happen, and I'm just speaking from my experience, when I really look at and I haven't done this in a while, but when I looked at a new market and I found one, I started diving in. When I found that one market, then I started looking at all the things you started talking about. So then my time was spent on that and not necessarily trying to find another market. You know what I'm saying? You might be more disciplined than I am, but, you know, but probably. The point, well, I don't know. The point here is maybe, you know, your primary goal for number 2 is to find one market a month, right? And then once you've found that market, then you start diving into it, knowing that in
you still there?
Knowing that in 30 days.
Are you talking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Went my back.
Are you back?
All right. So, yeah, I've been having trouble with internet. So if you can hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. So I think while we're on this subject, these sessions, when they're recorded, so if I ever go, they're recorded locally. So if I ever go dark for a minute, the recording is going to capture it. I don't think I said anything overly meaningful there. But what I want to say is, make sure that, if you're going to look at one market a month, or, your 30-day chip point is one market a month, find that market and then dive into it. There may be another way to do that, but I think you got a little bit of clarity there that you're going to work on and understanding,
okay.
Right?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay. Anything else from anybody else? Got anything for Mr. Smith?
You can say it. You say it good now.
I know. I'm just Tim, what you got, buddy?
I wrote down just a couple notes that I had marked down. I could wait until we're kind of done with the whole thing. Would you rather have me kind of wait, or should I ask just a couple questions just to get a little bit of clarity on what he's talked about so far?
Go ahead and ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you part of the RIA where you're located?
Yes.
Are you consistent?
Well, in terms of, so when you say RIA, I'm part of like Facebook groups.
Like
I'm not local to. Are you asking like my local one in New York or the one in Pittsburgh where I'm invested?
Yeah, wherever you are currently locally, are you going to a monthly meeting, person, face-to-face, networking with like-minded people?
No.
Why not?
Well, pretty much it's scheduling for me. I have talked to a guy that runs a local one, and I've meant to go the last 2 months. I've had, I just had situations come up. I got 4 young kids and a wife, and my 9 to 5, basically takes me from, my alarm goes off at 5 a.m. and I'm back from work at 5 p.m. So it's tough with a time schedule. This month's RIA was Tuesday. I had a boiler issue where I basically lost heat and hot water from Friday to Wednesday. So I kind of threw a wrench into my week. But that's been something that I know I need to do. And it's actually talking to Melody, she had mentioned one at a mall that's not too far from me. So that's definitely something I got to do, and I plan to. Yeah.
And I mean, if it's anything like ours or the couple that I've been to since I've moved, I've always been part of whatever RIA is. And I usually try not to miss a meeting. I think it's really important to make that face-to-face interaction. And, just so you guys are aware, I mean, the deal that Jay and I closed together, it was a syndication, and like 90% of the capital that was used to close that deal came from our RIA. So, I want to make sure that if you're going consistently every single month, and if you're very clear on who you are, what you're doing, what you're looking for, and you're genuinely interested in other people, people are going to start taking you a lot more seriously. People are going to start remembering who the person is that does, that's raising capital, that does commercial deals. If they're interested in passively investing, they're going to reach out to you. And the goal isn't to collect as many business cards as you possibly can. The goal is to genuinely be interested in other people, get to know what they're doing and what their goals are, what their interests are. And then that's how you find partners, like Jay and I, or that's how you find investors. So I was wondering, you didn't mention a RIA. You mentioned kind of virtual networking groups that you're a part of, which is extremely, effective now. But, I think if you made the RIA a priority, or if you try to make at least a monthly meeting, you might see some changes, and things might get easier for you to do what you're trying to do.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And get that elevator pitch to about 15 seconds, where anytime anybody says, what do you do? It's just like very smooth, very, very fluid. People, just because you're very clear on what you're saying, people will take you seriously and assume that you're a lot more experienced and you know what you're talking about. So I just want to emphasize the importance of that too. And then, for the next thing you said, you kind of market analysis until you have 6 to choose from. I'm right there in line with Jay. I think you should hone on 1, maybe 2, and then kind of delve vertical into those. Because if you go too horizontal, you're going to get too bogged down. But if you go only a little bit horizontal and start really going vertical, that'll hone your focus in. But do you have any markets in mind? What markets are you actually looking at right now?
So right now, I kind of reanalyzed Pittsburgh. I've been analyzing Columbus, Ohio. That's one that I like. I did real quick analyses on like Greenville, South Carolina, but I guess I know the Northeast a little bit better. So it's Pittsburgh submarket, and Columbus is the one that I've started to go more vertical into, if you will, because it did hit all the metrics that I was talking about before.
Yeah. So I was let's do a drill. I'm a broker right now in Columbus, Ohio. You reached out to me. You got me on the phone because that's really what you're trying to do. And I say, who are you and what do you do? What are you going to say? 15 seconds, go.
My name is Gwade Smith. I currently invest in Pittsburgh. I'm looking at other markets. Columbus has appealed to me based on your 5-year population growth, the unemployment rate, the growth that you've been experiencing there. And I'm starting my search for a new multifamily building that I plan to raise money for. I'm looking for 50 plus units. I don't have a submarket yet, so I would have that beforehand. Do you work in this area? And would you be interested in talking about this further?
I like it, man. There's a lot of really good things that you made points of. If I say, hey, Gwith, who are you and what do you do? Will you be able to recite that again? Same thing.
Exactly what I said?
Yeah.
Sure. I'll try.
Yeah. So get to the point where you could repeat it in your head. So anytime anybody asks you what you do or who you are or what you invest in, it's the same thing. And it's just like clockwork. It's just like fluid, it's natural, and you're very relaxed. And because when you ask other people who you are, what you do, what are your goals, obviously they're going to be like, well, tell me about you. And then boom, it's just like automatically you're like, my name is Gwith. I invest in affordable housing in these markets. We're looking for this many units or this many spaces, whatever you're investing in. We're always looking for partners and we're always looking for capital, like whatever who you are, what you do, and specifically what you're looking for, and as clear and concise as you could be. And I think that's going to be a huge benefit to get you to the next level.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
All right. So I've got about 10 minutes, and then Patrick and Terry both raise their hands. So Patrick, I want to go to you first, and then we'll go to Terry. Okay.
Yeah, I just kind of want to piggyback off what Tim said about the elevator pitch. I have almost memorized Tim's elevator pitch from our RIA meeting. So it's 100%. I mean, the elevator pitch he did on Bigger Pockets and his podcast is 100% what I hear every month when I go to our PIG meetings. So spot on with that. And also the last project that I did in my flip was probably about 65% vendors that I met. And even the funding that we got for it was from connections we made through that RIA. So it's 100% true.
Okay. You guys invest locally to where you live?
Yeah,
I do. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, within about a 2-hour radius.
Okay.
Have not conquered the fear of getting over the long distance thing yet.
It's more of a necessity for me because Long Island is not the I wouldn't call it the best place to invest in multifamily for a bunch of reasons.
Yeah. Terry.
Well, I wanted to go back to the problem, like our investment meetings and such, and ask Gwade about where his wife is on all of this and his big plans and everything, because I think that may be part of the problem in setting the priorities. And I totally get it. I raised 4 kids, and I know what it's like to have a house full of little ones and things. But where is she on that? And are you guys partnering on this to make it a priority? Or are these just more your goals for your family and she's in the background?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge being on the same page and everything. Like I said, our 4 kids are 8, 7, and twin 5-year-olds, so they're young. Oh, sorry, someone just happened on my phone. So she manages the 6 units, so the duplex and the fourplex. that's kind of what she does. In terms of getting on board with the goals, where we struggle is that I'm always looking to the future, and I'm always planning that, and she's trying to get me to live more in the now. So, it's a struggle. And I feel bad, I feel bad when I'm like, hey, I got a 1 hour call on Sunday at 10 o'clock, or, I got another call for this at this time because, she wants to, kind of hang out with me in the evening. Like the kids go to sleep and we have, an hour or so to do something. Like she wants to hang out with me or even just watch TV with me. And, there's certain things where I got things I have to deal with, with the property that we have in Pittsburgh. There are certain things on these renovations and the property managers that there's emails that need to be answered, and there's time that needs to be spent. And my day at work, I'm in allied health and I have direct patient care. It's very difficult to do that at work. So, there's a good 12-hour chunk of the day that it's just not available for it. So it's hard. That's one of my big challenges. That's part of my personal growth coaching that I'm trying to, fix.
Perhaps you could incorporate that into your goals, choosing small goals that the two of you attain together in these 90-day and 1 year and step to make it more inclusive and maybe get her a little more excited. And I get that she just wants you, but
who wouldn't? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's kind of why you get married to somebody.
There you go.
Anyway, I would say make it a little bit more of a partnership if you can.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I hear that, and I'm working on it. So thank you.
Hey, great point, Terry. Very, and Gwaith, I'm right there with you. I'm catching up with you on the number of kids. So we have a lot of similarities there, but I'm feeling you. So so I'll share this with you. So one of my goals for first quarter 2019 is to do one new experience with my family a week, right? And the way that we're going to accomplish that is my wife and I have agreed to spend 30 minutes a day coming up with something that we can do. There's always some sort of festivals or something going around here. I mean, it could be just as, hey, there's a trail that we haven't hiked with the kiddos. Let's go knock it out. Let's go spend 2 hours to do that. So what Terry said has really hit home with me before, to the point where we've got to focus on that. And we've got about a quarter before the new baby gets here. So we've you got definitely great point, Terry. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's important.
So I've got like 2 minutes, but I want to talk about your vision number 3. And I think and I want to make sure you put help ? You're asking for help, or are you echoing like the go-giver help?
No. I was asking. I was
okay.
Okay.
Like
when I was trying to really kind of get this to what it needs to be, I started having difficulties. So.
Well, now, I think what Tim mentioned was great. Patrick mentioned too, we're all in the same local RIO group here in Pensacola. I am the worst attendee ever. And because of the reasons you just said, our local RIO meets at 7:00 on Tuesday nights. It's about the time our kids start going to bed, and having a pregnant wife. There's been some challenges with that, because she usually does all that herself. But anyway, won't get into all that. But sounds like you got one of them there with you.
Yeah.
So, hey man, bring them in. That's fine. So, I think some of the things that Tim mentioned about getting involved, you're going to start finding lay across all of your goals, right? And I think once you start making those connections, you're going to start figuring out a way to provide value to those folks, those synergistic partners there. So in that, the primary drill for goal number 3 could be that I think it's going to spill over from your goal number 2, that once you find that market then you're going to start saying, you listed a handful of people that you've got to figure out, you've got to talk to if you really want to be serious about that market. Then that's just going to spill over into goal number 3, right?
Yeah.
And maybe, your checkpoint is making one meaningful connection per week. I think one a day is going to be too much, and one a month is not going to be enough. But a meaningful, a meaningful connection means different things to different people, right? So, that's where I would leave that is to look for opportunities to make one meaningful connection per week. Now, your primary drill, I think once you identify that market, you spend 15 to 30 minutes on potential, your tradesman there. You're talking about your property manager, attorney if needed, those kind of things. Maybe your primary drill for goal number 3 is to spend 30 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day on finding those people that you were talking about, right? Your property manager, local legal folks. Maybe it's getting involved with a RIA group in Pittsburgh. For example, our RIA does a Facebook Live once. I think it's Facebook Live, so it's posted virtually, right? So I think there's some things there that you could do on a daily basis, but then your checkpoints would be, for a month to have 4 meaningful new connections. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear you.
You got one of them that wants to come on video and say, hey?
Andrew, you want to come say hello? Mr. Twin, come here. Come show him your missing teeth. Get over here.
Uh-oh.
Like I said, we can't see us, but say hello. Say hi to the mastermind.
Hello. What happened to your teeth? Lost them? They'll come back, right?
Yeah. Christmas, 2 bottom teeth. All right, go get your brothers and say hello to me. Don't bring them in though. Okay, I'll be down in like 10 minutes, okay? Only if you first. 10 minutes. Oh yeah, you know when it gets to that point where you're like, you got to leave the party because it's getting squirrely.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I'm going to use them as my time to tap out too. So we've got to get on the road, but just to follow up. So there's some feedback here. I think you've gotten a lot of clarity out of today. I think you're doing great, man. It's just getting to that point of where you feel like you're progressing, right?
Yeah.
You're actually not sitting there with your wheels spinning. And I think you are. I think you're getting to that point where the connection you made is huge. I love, personally, I was getting chills hearing to think, hey, you actually incorporated the go-giver. You were the connector through that whole thing with Joe Fairless and your buddy from the Giants. So that's awesome. If they end up doing,
it's not awesome is that I'm a huge Jets fan, but whatever.
Well, I think that's even more of a testament, right? Hey, I'm really going to put myself aside here and make this connection. So, because I know that rivalry runs deep, right? So, I will post the LOI template that we talked about in the Facebook group. It'll be a link to a Google Doc, so you guys can grab it. And then the challenge for the rest of the month is just to finish the 12-week year. Keep solidifying your goals in your primary drills, and for everybody to have happy holidays and happy new year. Okay. After that, I'll post, we've got the daily challenges that I'll post in the Facebook group, and then I'll post the next meeting, which will be January the 6th, where we'll take a stab at looking at Terry's 12-week tracker, which she's doing an awesome job in that, by the way. So sound good? Got some head nods.
Sounds good.
All
Hey,
right.
Jay, I just want to make sure I threw a couple extra notes in the chat box for Gwith, just to make sure. I know we don't have time anymore to talk about it, but just make sure you check the chat box before you log off, Gwith.
Okay, will do.
All right,
and guys, sorry for my technical difficulties today. It was bad timing there.
No, we worked through it, man. You were fine. You were fine.
Right.
So Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great day.
All right.